Hey everybody, welcome to Example of Play. In this video, we're going to round out our coverage of Poland 39. The last couple of videos I did on this, I think I covered 90% of what you need to know to play the game, to understand all the basics, and then we didn't quite get into all the nitty-gritty on every single detail, but you can always check out, if you come up to help here, the user manual, and dig around in there if there's something specific you're looking for. But I think really we covered most of what you need to know, with the exception of just going a little bit more in depth on engineers and all the different things they can do. So for this video, it's going to be kind of a little supplemental. We're just going to talk about engineers, specifically all the different things they can do and how to do them. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. This scenario I selected is the Battle of Lomza. It's a nice one where we do have an engineer unit. We have 34 turns to work with, so plenty of time to put them to work, building up some defenses and doing the various other things that they can do. I'm not really going to be playing this scenario trying to win it, just going to use it as a platform to show off the different things our engineer unit here can do. So you can easily identify your engineers by this symbol. It's kind of like a downward facing E, so you can just remember it's like an E for engineers. And you can look at the unit and see that they have some combat ability, but you don't want to be using these guys to fight. They have a lot of specialized uses, so you don't want them in the front line unless there's just nothing else left to hold a position. You want to keep them safe and keep them working on other tasks. So there's a whole list of things that they can do. We'll just go down them one by one. I'm not really going to try to win this scenario, but it seemed like a good one to use as a platform to do the different things, because we have a nice geographic defensive position here. We're holding these crossroads against the Germans, but we have like this marshy river running along here, so it creates these choke points at the bridges and roads. So a perfect case for our engineers to put them to work to stiffen our defenses and help our poor Polish forces hold out against the Germans that are coming at them. So we'll just go down the list one by one and see what all we can do with these guys. All right, so first we'll kind of hit on using your engineers to fortify positions. So in the last video, we talked about how most units can dig into a position. So like if we look at these infantry, we could have an infantry unit use the dig in command up here, or Control D, and then they'll have a good chance every turn of digging in and making that an improved position, which makes it a little bit more defensible, reduces some of the incoming attack. And then if you have them dig in more, it's a little harder for your regular infantry to do, but they can also turn it into trenches over time. It's kind of random, and like we talked about in the last video, the bigger the unit that you have working on it, the higher the chance of success. But you can improve that further by bringing one of your engineer units in. You could have them help dig in that position, and it triples the success chance of improving that position further to like a trench. So it's good to use if your engineers, you don't have anything else for them to do, have them help your infantry and other units dig in if they're working on that, to get those positions improved faster. Now, what your engineers can do that your infantry can't is then improve those positions further from like here. This one, yeah, so here, that one's nothing. This one, a trench there. This one, if we look, it's a fort, so it takes the bonus higher. And then we also have pillboxes, which give a bonus as well. And our engineers, depending on the scenario and how much time you have to work with, you can try to have them improve positions beyond trench up to pillbox and then fort, which makes them much stronger and more defensive. But only your engineers can do that. All right, and then just as a demonstration, we'll try to have these guys dig in here, turn this unfortified position into an improved position. So we just select them, and then we hit that little shovel or hit Control D, and then you see it says digging in there. It has to be their first action of the turn. Basically, it's going to use their whole turn, so you can't have them move or shoot or do anything else before they start digging in. And then while they're digging in, they're going to be reduced effectiveness for fighting back at the enemy. So you don't want to be doing this under fire. You want to be doing it at kind of behind the line or before the enemy gets there. And then we'll skip a turn or two, see if we get success. And then I have it on kind of hyper speed, so don't worry about that. See, okay, we didn't succeed that time. And then we might move up these infantry back here. Basically, the more manpower you have helping you can improve your chances of success. And so we did get improved position there. So they succeeded in turning that into an improved position. So we can now see it's got 10% incoming fire reduction. And then on the map, the little symbol changes. And then we'll move these guys up and then we'll have all of them dig in together. Basically, we'll use their manpower, which they could do a trench on their own, but with the infantry joining them, you're going to multiply the engineers plus the manpower of the regular infantry is going to give you a high chance of success for digging in successfully and turning it into a trench. But these guys moved, so we'll bring them in on the next turn. So then we'll have these infantry join them in digging in. Let's see if that gives us a better chance. Still not yet. So yeah, you can't rely on this happening. It's never a sure thing, and it could take several turns before it happens, even with 500 guys working on it, 600. We're hoping that front line continues to hold. They're in forts up there, so they're in a strong position, but of course they're taking a beating. But I'm just kind of curious. Sometimes you can get lucky and it happens faster, and sometimes you do not get lucky. All right, so there though, we got it. It bumped it up to trench, so now it's even better. And then, like I said, you could go further. You could have your engineers dig in again and try to turn this into a pillbox position, which that might be harder though and take more time. And it just depends on the scenario whether you want to try to do that or not. But that's basically how to use your engineers to multiply your chances of improving a position to higher levels of fortification. All right, so we'll reset and go on to the next thing. All right, so you kind of knew that already, but what else can our engineers do beyond fortified positions? So actually our engineers, they have their own button tab up here. If you click that, or you can also see these same options in this drop down. They can do bridge operations, which is going to be with building bridges of different types. They can also damage bridges, so you can knock out a bridge if you want to cut off the enemy from crossing it. They can lay mines, and then they can clear mines or clear rubble. So if, say, a city hex gets bombarded and it turns into rubble, which you would see like here, it would say rubble, or obstacles or different things, these little scripters down here, you could use your engineers to clear that stuff out. Or if there's an enemy minefield there, you can move them into that hex and they'll clear those mines out. But we can also, we'll look at here is laying mines. But before we try to do that, there's something I want to show you that it's been a factor all along, but it hasn't mattered that much to what we were trying to do. But it'll help you to know that it's there and save you some heartache. And if you hit F3 or come up here and under help, hit parameter data, every scenario has a bunch of parameters in here, a big, huge list. And this basically affects how things work, the probabilities of different things, different modifiers for different things for particular scenarios. And so, of course, there's probably kind of some default ballpark parameters that are on for most scenarios. But depending on the scenario, the designer can go in here and tweak these things to kind of suit the scenario to what they're trying to convey. But for engineers, it's very important if you're going to do certain actions that you come in here and check out some of these numbers. Because like for digging in, we see here, the digging in chance is 4% per turn. So that's like the default baseline chance of a unit digging in is 4% per turn. So of course, that's why you want to try to multiply that chance by using like your engineer. An engineer company with an infantry battalion is going to have a much higher chance than 4% per turn, because you're going to get those different infantry companies are going to add together, plus an engineer company in there multiplies it by 3. So you could bump that up to a much higher percent chance, like 30% or whatever, of digging in on a turn versus a very low 4% chance. But if we're talking about building beyond trenches into establishing bunkers, it's a 1% per turn for this scenario. Now, it might be different in other scenarios, but that's something you want to look at, because if you think I'm going to try to create a bunker here with my engineers, you're probably going to spend the whole rest of the battle trying to get that bunker built. Even though it has 34 turns, 1% per turn, you might not ever get there. So that's something to look at. And then for what we're looking at now, though, mine probability. So if we wanted to lay a minefield in this scenario, probably not a very good idea either. For our one engineer unit, they're going to have a 2% chance per turn of successfully laying those mines. So we're not going to expect that to happen, but I'm going to show you how to do it. Other scenarios, you might come in here and see a higher chance, depending on, it's the scenario. It's just based on the historical context of the battle, whether your unit would have time to lay a minefield or have the supplies, that kind of thing, depending on what the scenario designer is going for. With that said, let's look at if we did want to try to lay a minefield. It's pretty easy. We would just select our engineers and we just come up here and click lay mines. or Control M, and then you see down here it says laying mines, and then every turn we would have a 2% chance that they could successfully lay those mines. Now while they're laying those mines, they can't really do anything else. Kind of the same thing. It eats up their whole turn. They can't fight, move, anything else. That's all they're doing. And we'll go one turn just for fun. See if we have that 2% chance plays out for us. Nope. Now, so they're still laying mines. Minefields do have levels to them, so kind of like you can improve the defenses of a position up through multiple levels. If we did succeed, we could have a level 1 minefield here, and then it can be upgraded further to a level 2 or a level 3 minefield. So of course, the higher level minefield, the more effective it is, and the harder it's going to be to clear out. So say if you've got your engineers, you're trying to clear a minefield to attack a position, and it's like a level 3 minefield, that's going to be quite an endeavor trying to clear those mines. So you want to be aware of that. It's going to take more time. That said, clearing mines works a little bit differently. There is a button here for it, but you don't necessarily have to use it. If you move an engineer unit into a minefield, they will automatically start clearing the mines. You just leave them there, and then over time they're going to clear those mines out. They'll also, though it takes them some time to fully clear the mines, after one turn, they will succeed in creating lanes through the mines. So basically, other units, as long as they're in travel mode, you can move other units through those cleared lanes, but it's going to slow them down, just like crossing a bridge or going through a congested urban space, something like that. So your units will be a little more vulnerable. They have to go into travel mode to move through it, but they can do that. And then your engineers, as long as you leave them sitting there, they'll keep clearing the mines till they're totally gone. And just like laying the mines, you might want to come up here to look at the parameter data to see what your help with your chances of building a bridge. And bridge actually has a whole category just for bridges here. I mean, we can see that there's an allied and access bridge value, and this is a percent chance that they can successfully build a bridge. We can see in this scenario the access has 100%, so they are actually ready to go with building some bridges, where allies were only at 30%. And then there's this pontoon value. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then light bridge, medium bridge strength, heavy bridge strength. So there's a lot of parameters here about bridges. And then, of course, depending on how strong your engineer unit is, or if you have like a battalion, they're going to have a higher chance of doing it than a single company. And then their morale also plays into their chances. I'll just pull it up here to see. So if we have a quality D, so these guys are at C, so they're default normal. But basically, if they're higher quality, lower quality, it affects that percent chance. And then if it's a full battalion versus just a single company of engineers, it affects that chance. And then if they've taken casualties, if there's less than 100 men left in that unit, that's going to lower your chances. So a lot of factors going into building this bridge. But if we skip a turn, we'll just see if maybe we get lucky and they manage to do it. Oh, they did. So if they only had the 30% chance, and it was just 156 guys, but they did succeed in one turn building a new little bridge right here. And if we hold down right click, we can see it's an engineer bridge right there. Now that we've got the bridge though, our engineer unit says has bridge here. Basically that means that they have built this bridge and they're maintaining it, and it means that they can't move away. So like if we select that unit, hit H, we can see that they can't move anywhere because they're basically maintaining that bridge. But if we wanted to, say, get them across the bridge, they have to change to travel mode. So we can see right there they can't move, but if we change them into travel mode, and you get the little white stripe there, and now they can cross the bridge and go to the other side. So you can use that to get them across the bridge, let's say if we wanted to do that. And then next, if you want to move away from the bridge and maintain their capability to build another bridge later, you'll need to dismantle that bridge and basically pack it up so they can take it with them. So if we want to dismantle that bridge, we'll select our engineers again, and then there's damage bridge, but that's not what we want to do. If you select that, you'll see we only have an option for down, and that's because there's a different medium bridge down there. We could damage it. We'll try that maybe in a minute. But rather, we want to select bridge operations again. If we try to do it here though, we see we can't do it because they are still in travel mode. So we'll need to take them out of travel mode. So they're kind of deployed, and then they can actually try to do that. And then if we tried to do it again, they don't have enough movement points left. So you can see it's kind of a multi-step process to get an engineer in position, build a bridge, and then if you want to get them across and pack that bridge up, it's going to take another turn just for them to get set where they can do that. Now we skipped a turn, and then we have them selected, and then we can click bridge operations. Now we see it says bridge ops has bridge. So now basically they're packing up that bridge. But again, it's going to take them at least one turn, perhaps multiple turns, depending on that bridge chance. Like before, we built it in one turn. It might take more turns than that to pack it up. And so you got to wait until they've got it packed up. Now, let's say you didn't have time to wait. Like they're on the run, the Germans are coming, and we don't have any more bridges to cross, so we don't care. You can actually select them and come up here, and you'll see this option for abandon bridge. And so you can do that instead. I don't think, yeah, so even here, so we can abandon the bridge even after committing all of our movement points trying to dismantle it. But now you can see it says no bridge. So now we've gotten rid of that bridge, we've cut free of it. Our engineers have left it behind, but they can't build another bridge. Basically, they've left behind all their equipment for bridge building. So that's kind of an emergency option. That's your panic mode button. You want to get away, but you're going to lose that capability because now we have no bridge with this unit. They've left all their stuff behind. All right, and then next we'll kind of briefly talk about building a pontoon bridge. So in this scenario, we just have this river that runs along the hex side. It's just between the hexes. But you could have a river in a scenario that's like a major river that takes up the entire hex. And that's going to be a lot harder to get across. You're going to have to build a pontoon bridge. So we'll open up the manual here and look at it. Building a pontoon bridge has an extra layer of time delay on it. And it's going to depend on one of our parameter values for the scenario, how long that delay is. So if we open up that parameter data here again, go down to bridge, we see allied pontoon value is 15, axis is 1. So that's a pretty big difference. What does that mean? Basically, it means if you're going to try to build a pontoon bridge and you're doing it as the allies in this scenario, whenever you initiate those bridge ops, there's going to be a 15 turn delay on getting that pontoon bridge built. So before you even get to the percentage chance of it being built each turn, which for the allies is only the base of 30%, you're going to have to wait 15 turns for that to even start. Where in this scenario, at least for Axis, it's just a 1 turn delay. Even though there's not a river here to cross like that, if there was, there'd be a 1 turn delay and then 100% chance of success on the next turn. So for them, it's just going to take a couple turns to get it built. Where for the allies, it could take a long time to get it built. 15 turns no matter what, plus that 30% chance. So that's definitely something to be aware of if you're planning any kind of bridge crossing operations you want to come in here and see, because these values could be different in different scenarios. So that's what that means. Basically, you're going to wait that many turns, then the normal bridge building starts after that for building a pontoon bridge. All right, and then instead of building bridges, we could also try to damage them if we wanted to. Might want to do that to cut off a route of approach for the enemy, force them into just one area. Because, for example, here there's 2 bridges crossing this river and heading towards the objective. So what if we maybe damaged one of them? If we look at them and think about which one we want to do, this one obviously it's behind this fortified line, and it is a heavy bridge, so it's going to be a little harder for us to damage that. This one is outside the line, is a little bit of a vulnerability point here that the Axis might try to cross, because it's a medium bridge, so it might be a little easier for us to try to damage. If you remember in the parameter data, there's values for each level of bridge set. If we wanted to try to damage it, it's pretty straightforward. We'd get our engineers here next to it. They've used up all their movement, so we'll skip ahead a turn real quick. Hopefully no Germans come attack them. We would select them, and then we'd click damage bridge. And then there's only one direction to go, so if there were multiple, we might have a choice here, but we just have the one. And then they're going to hit that bridge, and then we can see that it was damaged, so they successfully managed to damage it. Basically, when you do that, it's kind of like they're attacking the bridge, so it depends on your engineer unit, depends on the bridge, whether they're going to succeed or not. But in this case, we did succeed in damaging it on our first attempt. You can see it's there now, and it has this symbol on the map showing that it is damaged. And then we don't have one in this scenario, but if you came up on an anti-tank ditch, it works kind of like a river. You can use your engineers to either build a bridge across it in the same way, or you can use the just damage bridge command. It works for an AT ditch. You can see it up there, to just destroy that ditch. So there's kind of 2 different ways to go about it. But basically, most of the rules apply the same way. as it does here for building or damaging a bridge to get across a river. And then finally, I'm just going to open the manual up. I don't have one of these here. I'm not going to read through all of it, but if you had a full hex bridge, so an existing bridge crossing a full hex river, it's going to be a pretty serious structure. Trying to destroy it actually takes up, it's a very complex multi-step process. So it's here in the manual on this page 91. So if you ever have a scenario you need to try to destroy a bridge like that, you can read up on how to do it here. Now, for our last topic, as an alternative to building a bridge, engineers can also act as a ferry to get units across, but this is more limited. Basically, for ferrying, there is going across rivers and canals like we have here, and then there's also water hex, so like a major river, which we'll talk about in a second. But for the river canal here, instead of trying to build that bridge, we can move some units across if they're the right class. Basically, they need to be men on foot, either be men or be like horse units but on foot, and then they need to be in travel mode. They need to have their full movement allowance, so basically it's going to take an entire turn for them to do this, and then they can't be disrupted or broken, and then the engineers can't be doing anything else. Basically, the engineers just need to be hanging out here next to the river hex side like this, and then we've got this machine gun company, move them up. They're in travel mode, got the T there, and then they can't move across there yet because they don't have full movement allowance. But if we wait a turn and then we check again, we see that, okay, they've got their full movement allowance, they're in travel mode. This engineer is next to the river hex side and is not doing anything else, and then they're the right class of unit, so basically just guys on foot. They can move directly across a river like that without building a bridge. Now they're on the other side. It uses up all their movement to do that. And then a unit could move across to the engineer in the same way. Basically, they're either moving in or out of the engineer's space when they do this ferrying like this. If it's not a river or canal, if it's a full river hex, like we talked about, like a major river, then it's a little different. The engineer unit needs to be one that is marked that it has boats. And then the instructions for how that works is here. So it's a little harder. They have to have dedicated boats for doing that to ferry that. But if you just need to get some infantry across a river hex side quickly, and you don't want to mess with trying to build a bridge and everything, you can use engineers to do that. And then the engineers, they can't move across right now, but if we change them to travel mode, then they could ferry themselves across that river hex as well, or that river hex side as well. So that's how you can do ferrying to across rivers a different way. All right, so I think that is it. We've reached the end of the list of all the things an engineer can do. I know in a lot of games you get engineer units sometimes and you're not sure, like, what can I do with these guys? How do they work? Poland 39 is one where they have a lot of special functions, because understanding that you can damage this bridge over here to cut it off, you can reinforce positions to make them more defensible, you can ferry units across, build bridges, all this stuff that your engineers can do. It's important to understand that in any scenario in the game where they're present, especially like if you're playing the bigger scenarios where you have more time, you got a lot of turns to work with and thinking about, am I going to build some extra lines of defense? Or if you're on the offensive, how do I use my engineers to create a new avenue of attack or cut one off by destroying a bridge? Lots of things that these guys can do. And so it's important to understand how to do that. I think I'm done with this series on Poland 39 for now. If there's something I didn't cover that you're really unsure about, drop it in the comments. I might try to answer it, or someone else might come along and give an answer. But I think over these 3 videos, even though the game seems kind of complex on the face of it, and there's still, as far as being good at the game, understanding strategies of moving your units around and actually winning the battles, there's still some work to do, some practice to be had on that. But after you've watched this series, you should be equipped with all the basics, a pretty good idea at least of what's going on, what all the stuff on the screen means, and what the important buttons up here. We didn't use every button, but some of them are just informational, and I think we covered most of what you need to know to actually play the game, get into it, and have fun. And then, of course, you can open up the manual if there's something you're not sure about, and check it out, because it's pretty well written. I didn't have any trouble understanding any of the things. It's just that there's a lot to cover. But I think we got through it all. So be sure and hit subscribe for more videos like this in the future. And thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.